As he said, my name is Pam Nelson, and I have this company called PJ Nelson Consulting. And so, what we do is help people declutter, discern, and decide through coaching and support. So, why do we need to declutter? How many of you have walked into your closet and you see rows and rows of clothes, but the first thing you say is, I don't have anything to wear? Anybody been there? And then the next thing we do, sometimes you sit down, you got to go to work, and then all of a sudden, after you've been sitting there for like 2 minutes, your phone buzzes. And so you check the message, and then you hear somebody in the background going, Mama! And then you tell them to be quiet. And then the next thing you do is you can start going like, okay, I got to go to the grocery store, I got to order food, I got to do this, I got to do that. And then if you had 30 minutes to get whatever you started to do done, you don't get it done. Because now you got to go back and think again, why did I sit here? What was I getting ready to do? So all of a sudden, you're done. That's why we need to declutter. It is shown that most houses, just the average house, has 300,000 items. 300,000. Every one of them saying, deal with me. Do something. Put me away. Throw me in the trash. But you got to deal with it, right? But that's the physical clutter. And we all know about physical clutter. But then we also have mental clutter. Mental clutter is all the lists in our head. I got to go to the store. I got to remember to go do this. I got to remember to go do that. All these things keep us from being at peace with ourselves, and it causes us to just be unnecessarily busy. There's another clutter. Sometimes it go like, well, how can spirituality be clutter? But think about it. Sometimes we're listening to our favorite praise and worship song. We're also reading a book, but we're also listening to a sermon. We got so much stuff going on in our head that we can't even really hear what the word is saying to us. So there is a science behind all this, right? Of how our bodies cannot function because we have so many things going on. And many of you probably know, you've probably heard of the fight or flight. I think the speaker right before me, she talked about fight or flight. In a normal world, fight or flight is fine. It's supposed to give you that burst of energy so that you can go and save yourself. It's supposed to be that thing that can help you pick up your car off your child if there's a problem. But when your body is in that mode constantly, which is what happens when you've got all these little things going on, you've got the buzzers going on, you've got your phone turned on, that keeps you in fight or flight way too often. So what happens? When we're in that mode all the time, our bodies begin to break down because it doesn't know whether to fight or flight. So it starts fighting against itself. And then we have all these things that we have to deal with because we're in that mode. We have high blood pressure, we have stress, we have diabetes. It just creates a lot of disease because the body doesn't know how to handle it all. So the next thing is we get burnout. You ever been so tired you don't know why you're tired, you're just tired? You rest, you sleep, you wake up, and you're still tired. Why? Because our bodies can't shut down. We're still in that mode where we have so many things on that we don't know how to turn it off. And your body doesn't know whether to turn off because we're in a constant state of where we are waiting for things to happen. We want there to be that excitement. That's why we're constantly scrolling. That's why we're constantly looking, and we can't put our phone down for even a few minutes. How many of you right now have your phone somewhere close to you? In your hand, it's in your pocket, but you can feel it. And if you don't feel it, you start going, oh my God, what did I do with my phone? Where's my phone? Where's my phone? Where's my phone? Because we have learned and trained ourselves to be in this expectation of excitement, expectation of waiting, that we don't want to miss something. And so it creates this, again, this fight or flight, and we're in that fight or flight all the time. It also leads us to burnout. Stress can overwhelm us to the point where we don't want to do our job. And it's not that the job is that hard, it's just that we can't learn to juggle all the things that we want to do, or we haven't been able to compartmentalize them enough to where they don't bother us. But sometimes we think, okay, it's my job, it's my kids, it's my husband, I just got to change positions. No, we just need to get all the stuff out of our head so that we can start to move and do and be able to discern what it is we need to do and then just decide to do it. Because sometimes what happens is we know what we need to do. We just don't want to do it because it will take us in a different direction, whether we are fearful of that direction, whether we don't know what to do, but we have done it. And we've all been there, right? We've been there trying to make that decision of what it is we need to do. Then we have this thing called decision fatigue. Anybody ever walk around and you've been so tired, you're busy, you got a lot of things going on at work, and you get home and somebody goes, "What's for dinner?" And you're like, I don't know. Because you can't make another decision. You're done. You're done. And the later in the day that it gets, the harder it is to make a decision. You never want anybody else to ask you anything because we have wasted all of our energy making decisions all day, whether they were good, bad, or indifferent. Most people make 35,000 decisions a day. Most of them are very small. We have to decide, like I said before, we've got to decide what we're going to wear to work. We have to decide what it is we're going to go, where we're going to eat, whether we got to go to the left, whether we got to drive the car, all these are decisions that we have to make. And some of them big. And that's why it gets so hard, because we make so many in a day. I put these two pictures up because these people, I love Barack Obama, right? And you got to respect Steve Jobs. They started this little movement to where it's like, okay, if you don't need to make a decision, don't. Steve Jobs had this thing, but like, why would I need to think? I hired people to be able to do all these things. So why would he waste his energy? He solved a lot of things. He's like, look, I don't have to think about what I'm going to wear. I don't have to think about what I'm going to eat. He ate the same thing every day. He wore the same kind of clothes every day. Now, many know his T-shirt cost $2,000. Who knows? But it was the same thing. It was a T-shirt and some jeans. Barack Obama, same thing. Very simple dress. Because the fewer decisions you make, the more your brain can rest and make bigger and better decisions. And so why not delegate? Why not let your children fix their own peanut butter and jelly sandwich, right? Whatever. But we can make fewer decisions so that we can rest our mind and then be able to recharge ourselves. Then we have this thing called the digital distraction. I talked a little bit before about who all had their cell phone. Because our cell phones buzz all the time. We've gotten to the point to where the first thing we do when we wake up in the morning is touch our phone. There is a study around about how many times people say they touch their phone in a day because there's so much. It's become that little box that we can't do without. We can't wake up and tell you what time it is because it's on our phone. We start to look at it, and are we looking for messages? We don't know, but the first thing we reach for is our phone. How many of you, now, if you're under 40, you may not remember, but at one point, we all had a phone, and it was plugged into the wall. And before we got caller ID, if you missed the phone call, you just missed the phone call. You didn't know nobody called you, and you wouldn't know unless they called you back and they said, I tried to call you 2 hours ago. But nonetheless, we were just fine. We didn't worry about it until we realized, we got the technology and we have to have the technology. Now, I grew up in southern East Texas, and it took us a long time to get that technology. We had the house phone for a little bit longer than most, probably. But nonetheless, somebody else from East Texas, it didn't come our way for a while. But either way, we have gotten so used to having that phone and that noise that we expected. And actually, how many of those calls are actually emergencies? We hold our phone, we scroll every text message, but how many of them are truly emergencies that we can just put it down so we can rest our mind and not be so worried about the phone? So, what are the consequences of clutter? And when I say the consequences of clutter, I mean all of the clutter. Whether it's the clutter and you've got the dishes in the sink or the mail piled up high on the desk, but it's still clutter. When we have physical clutter, creates a lot of unnecessary nervousness. If you've ever been in a room and you walk, if you're used to having like a monochrome room and everything's all nice and neat, and you go into a room and there's stuff all over the place, you just start getting nervous because you feel like you're going to fall, you're going to trip, you're going to do something. But that's what happens with physical clutter. With mental clutter, think about it. How many of you grew up and your house was really quiet? There wasn't a lot of noise, or even now, you don't have little children and your house is quiet, you don't watch a lot of TV, and you go to a neighbor's house and they got little children, and I don't want to call them crumb snatchers, but they're little, and one's crying over here and somebody's got a TV on over here, and you walk in and you go like, oh my gosh, it is so much going on. Because again, our bodies start to react to that, and as soon as you get into that process, start to get nervous because it's not our norm, and we cannot we cannot stay in that for a long time without it beginning to affect us. And so that's some of the consequences of clutter. And like I said, that spiritual clutter, same thing. We can't hear God's voice in the noise. Many of you remember the story of Elijah where he was looking for God in the wind, he was looking for him in the rain, he was looking for him in the storm. God was in a whisper. He cannot hear in the noise. Even we remember that even Jesus had to stake away and get his mind to rest. So how do we begin to get rid of the clutter? I'm just going to say clean up. Clean up. I don't know, many of you probably have had a family event, and at the end, everybody is sitting there, and then it's like, okay, everybody goes, and the kitchen is a wreck, and you're like, I can't wake up to this in the morning. So you just start putting things away. I put stuff in the oven that probably should have been in the refrigerator, but nonetheless, you just get it out of sight, right? You just hide it so that you don't have to deal with it, and then all of a sudden, it's like, whew, the kitchen is clean. I can go to sleep now because you just feel like you need to have that happen. And that's how you begin to rest, and you can rest your mind. Our bodies get really, really tired when we're stressed. We can't begin to do that until many of you probably heard this thing called Musafa, right? So have you ever just stopped for a minute? And I would say, we can try this now. The only time I would say don't do this is if you're sitting at a red light because you don't want to get hit. But any other time, just close your eyes just for a second. I'm going to count, and then you're going to take a deep breath, okay? And we're just going to try it, and then I want you to tell me whether or not you feel any different just in this few short seconds. So close your eyes, and it's 10, 9, 8, 7, 6, 5, 4, 3, 2, 1. Now take a deep breath in and let it out. Now, how many of you do something like that every day? All right. How many of you do that more than one time a day? Okay. Just doing that, when you don't even have to feel stress. If you just train yourself, I need to reconnect. And you can do, and it does clear your mind. All of a sudden, you just start listening. You can concentrate. Someone stopped me earlier today, and they say, I just don't know how to do it. You just start. And take 5 minutes. And at first, it's going to be really, really hard because you're going to hear all those other things. But the more you practice it, the more you can start to just sit and meditate, not listen, not think, just sit and clear your mind. And then you can see how recharged you'll be. So when we talk about it, we can hear God's voice when we get quiet. And I wrote this little book called Declutter, Discern, Decide, mainly because when we get all of the clutter out of our mind, out of our home, then we can really hear God's word. we can hear what he's trying to tell us to do. And then we can start to move forward. Because it's hard to hear all the noise that's going on. Even when you're sitting there, sometimes you go to sleep, you wake up and you start writing down we just can't turn our minds off. We just can't. And so this gives us that choice, right? We also think about some of the practical things. A morning reset, just doing that morning reset. That morning reset, like I said, even if it's 1 minute, just sit before you touch your phone and calm yourself. Don't think about what you got to do at work. Don't think about what you got to cook for breakfast or even for dinner. Just sit and be with God, and then you can move around. Simplify the decisions. And that's the hardest part. Many of us don't realize that if we start to simplify, automate, it does take the pressure off because then things just happen. If you lead a team, part of what I do is we help people to get to where they can lead teams, but a lot of people hold on to it because they're like, I don't want to let it go because if I let it go and I don't know what's going on, they're going to drop the ball, and then I got to pick it up anyway, and then I'm going to be lost. That's not how you lead a team. You lead the team and you give them a decision tree. If then this, then do that. It's really, really difficult to be able to grow if you still got to do all the work. We are not meant to be everything to everybody. I know we all have a cape, but whatever that cape is, we got to let it go. It's okay. It's okay. But then that's how we begin to be able to make people stronger and let them go forward as well. Because as long as we've got them in a position, but we're holding on to them and we won't let them flourish, they will never be able to move forward either. Another one, the digital boundaries, turn the phone off. Turn the phone off and be able to be without it for just a few moments. And like you said, we used to do it forever because we didn't have any other way for anybody to connect to us. We did all right. So when you turn it back on, if there's messages, answer them. But if you put that in perspective, then it'll be okay. And I say messages, but that goes for emails, it goes for texts, it goes for all of that. We can do without the phone for a few minutes. And then in the evening, wind down. Find that ritual of what you need to do when you wake up in the morning, but at the same time, you wind down. Ever have any children who they're used to going to bed like 8 o'clock and it's 9:30 and you got to peel them off the ceiling because you got them off their routine? And they have to have that routine. And just like they do, we do as well. And so when we set our boundaries and say, hey, I'm going to be in the bed by 10 o'clock, if you say it and start to do it, if you stay up past that time, you're just going to fall apart. Because it's like you don't know what's going on because your body has gotten into that rhythm. We call it a circadian rhythm, and there is a science behind it, but we always have to go through that process. And then a weekly rhythm. If God had to rest after creating the world, now we know he didn't really have to, but he did to set a pattern for us. I just talked about it before. Jesus took off. He couldn't do everything. He would steal away time to where he could think and pull away and connect with his Father. We have to do the same thing. We're made in his image. He wants us to rest. It's okay. Some of us think that if we rest, that we're lazy. Rest is not lazy. Rest is reconnecting, recharging, and moving forward. And when we do that, it really does help us in the long run. So, I would just want to say we did some of the things, and these are some of the tips. One of them is the breathing. Find a picture. Sometimes it's hard. This is a picture that I took when I was on vacation in Hawaii, and it's like, oh, this is great. I can sit and look at the picture. I don't even need it anymore. It used to help me kind of center because, like I said, I'm talking to you guys. I have to keep myself in check the same way. I run like a little Energizer buddy. And I go through this over and over and over and will literally get myself so busy. And I had a wake-up call. I was standing around and I'm thinking like, oh, okay, I got this. I'm not tired. I can go. I'm not tired. I can go. And then one day I was literally thinking that I was fine. I'm standing at a friend's memorial service and just pass right out. Wake up at Baylor and like, I don't know what happened. I don't have a clue. And then they go, ain't nothing wrong with you. it's like, you're just tired. And I did, just fell out. So I'm just going to say, I'm a work in progress, so I know what it's like. But I also, when you know what it's like, I can tell you how we can get it better and how we don't have to deal with that. So my booth is right back here. Like I said, I wrote this little book called Declutter, Discern, and Decide. It's really just a framework to kind of get you in the mindset of what it is that you can do. But it helps jumpstart. We have coaching sessions as well as counseling. We work from a spiritual perspective as well as a professional perspective with companies. So I'd love for you to stop by the booth, connect if you would. And then I hope that you will take some of these tips and learn to just declutter, clear your mind, make some decisions, and move forward. Thank you.